15,000 fans there, and like from all over the world. I mean, it was crazy.
Awesome.
I mean, it's. I mean, if you're a hardcore boxing fan and you don't go to Canastota, you're making a big mistake, basically.
Well, on that note, we just started the show again. So, Lou, I want to welcome you, and Jeandra. She is at home right now. Too bad she's not here at the Brown Table Talk with us, but she has joined us to the Best Women's Boxing Show, period. Thank you, Lou. Thank you for taking the time out to join us on such a celebratory weekend for you, because you were inducted in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Woo! That's so mega, 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 mega. And for you to be on our show today to do your victory laps, we are so grateful. And welcome to the show.
It's nice to be on with friends. And it was like one of the best weekends of my life, honestly. Like it's nice to get your roses when you're alive, you know? And I spent a lot of years in the sport. I did the best I could. And I think, I think I deserved it. And I think it's humbling, and it's a time you do a lot of reflection, and I have a lot to be grateful for about my career in boxing. Boxing's done a lot of really positive things for me. So, I'm really grateful. I hope people get a chance to hear my speech. It's on YouTube, apparently, because I get a lot of texts. But it was a great weekend, man. There was so much like camaraderie, and it was like you spent so much time over these days. They had you running all over the place with the entire 3 classes of fighters and other boxing people that were being inducted, and it was like a great time to get to know the other inductees and catch up with people. I worked with Roy, Mosley, Tony, Mayweather, go through the list. I've worked with all of them, so like having this time, a number of days to catch up. And you know what? I think every single one of us was equally awed and grateful to be getting this little tiny sort of piece of immortality that I never would have dreamed of. So, it was cool as hell. And from the perspective of your ladies' show, this was the first time that women fighters were inducted. They started inducting women in 2020, and because of COVID, 2020, 2021, and 2022 were all inducted together in this special trilogy class. But if you have to figure, it's the first 3 years women fighters are getting inducted. They inducted what they viewed as the most significant women, of all time.
Yeah.
So, Layla Ali, Christy Martin, Lucia Riker, Regina Halmick, Lady Tiger, Marion,
Holly Holmes,
Barbara, Holly Holmes, Barbara Blutrick. These, 92-year-old lady who tried to, basically break the barrier 70 years ago. This little tiny, thing, 92 years old, with telling her story to everybody. I think every inductee fell in love with her. And if you get a chance to watch her acceptance speech, you should do it and do a little research on her. Marion, the Lady Tiger. She's the first woman ever licensed by the New York State Athletic Commission to box, and she went on a hunger strike to get licensed. You realize that there were, a couple of women now are making a lot of money, but don't lose sight of how much a lot of women had to sacrifice to get here, and how much more has to be done.
Wow, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Go ahead, Jeandra.
And by the way, I'm going to say this again, but I'm not going. We'll have a whole other show on it, but no 3-minute rounds. It's a terrible idea.
Oh, okay. We're gonna get back into that. Go ahead, Jeandra. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No. I want to talk about that while the thought is on top of your head. Why no 3-minute rounds? Why are you against that?
Because it's the stupidest thing ever. It really was started by haters who were looking for excuses for why they hate. And the women's boxing product is awesome the way it is. And the 2-minute rounds result in nonstop action, which you don't get from the men. And with all due respect, if women had 3-minute rounds, they still wouldn't have the knockout rate of men. And what makes you think, if you can't get enough TV time now from anyone, that you're going to get more TV time with longer fights? Stop. Also, I haven't even gotten into the main issue and the main reason I oppose it, which is 2-minute rounds are safer, right? So if historically your product is safer, why change it now to make it less safe? And particularly anybody who, and I guarantee you ladies who I think are great fans of women's boxing and great advocates for women, and Google women in head injury or women in concussion, and you will see that there are simply physiological differences, which I'm not saying it's a quantum difference of risk, because boxing's inherently risky. And it's obviously super risky for men. Look at, we just lost that poor warrior in Africa who was punching the air. So it's inherently risky for both sexes, but young women particularly, are more at risk for really adverse consequences of concussion. So, like, why are we going to make women's boxing less safe? Why? Because a couple of haters or a couple of girls think they'd have a few more knockouts if it was 3-minute rounds, or a lot of haters use 3-minute rounds versus 2-minute rounds as an excuse for why they don't like women's boxing. Those fuckers will hate women's boxing if it's 3-minute rounds the same way they hate if it's 2. And if you can't see that there's more action in a women's fight, there are very few horrible, heinous women's fights, even though the matchmaking's equally shitty. Why is that? Because you have 2-minute rounds of nonstop action. And even a woman who can't fight is putting out effort during that period. So why fuck with a good fucking product? Because a couple of dumb women want their own records to reflect more knockouts, and haters have spawned people on to making this great 0.2 versus 3-minute rounds. What makes you think we're going to get more, lots more knockouts in 3-minute rounds? You're just going to get more sustained damage. And by the way, if you really want to see more knockouts, make the gloves smaller for women, which makes a lot more sense. And by the way, that makes that smaller gloves safer. Longer rounds, not safer. That would be a fact if you try. I'm not advocating to change men's fights from 3 to 2, but there's unquestioned, zero question that changing them to 2-minute rounds would be safer. So I'm not advocating to make that change. I'm advocating to not make a change to less safe. That's not going to make the product better, and is not going to make the women make another fucking penny. That's the end of my thing. I don't want to debate it with people. I'm a real advocate of this. I feel very strongly about it because I take head injury very seriously. I lost my brother to suicide following a head injury. I lost 2 fighters to head injury, and I don't make women's boxing less safe for no fucking good reason. That's the end of my spiel on that. And by the way, I earned the right to fucking say that.
Absolutely.
I've given enough to women's boxing over my career. I'm not someone saying that. It's also funny to me, a lot of these people advocating 3-minute rounds have never done a fucking thing to advance women's boxing.
Thank you.
Okay. That's the end of that spiel. Let's talk about the Hall of Fame now.
Well, no, real fast. So, when people say, oh, this 3-minute rounds, but then they say, well, women in MMA and UFC, they can go 5 rounds. They can do that. And apparently there's no trouble. This is what they're saying. Okay,
but what are the majority of women's fights? How long are the majority of women's fights in MMA?
Isn't it like 5 minutes? 5 minutes, 5 rounds? Or 5 minutes?
No, it's generally not 5 minutes, 5 rounds. Isn't it generally 5 minutes, 3 rounds? And a title fight is 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think it's shorter. I'm not purporting to be an MMA expert, but the fights, first of all, are way fewer rounds. Second of all, they're fucking grappling and kicking and doing all this other shit. Why do you think insurance is 10 times as high for head injury in boxing as it is in MMA? It's apples and oranges. I'm tired of hearing dumb shit from people that don't know or care. Really. I mean, you're wrestling, you're grappling, you're kicking, you're doing a lot of other shit. Okay? It's a multi-discipline sport. My insurance in New York for boxing matches is infinitely higher than MMA's. Why? Because insurance companies have decided that it's a much greater risk for head injury in boxing. Okay. So I don't want to hear stupid shit from stupid people. And again, no offense, but some of the people might be well-intentioned, but it's not like they're researching the issue. And on top of it, women's boxing needs more exposure, not less exposure. Good. Make the fights longer. Maybe that'll make Clarissa happier or one of the stars happier in a long fight. But already it's difficult to get sufficient television time for women's boxing. Making the fights longer is not going to help. It's going to hurt. That's just common sense and logic. And by the way, if television executives in 2022, the majority of whom don't really give a damn about boxing, could shorten boxing matches, believe me, they would. Because it's all about right now.
You would know.
It's all about, well, you know this too. It's all about quick. It's about action. It's about quick results. They're trying to shorten baseball games. They don't want to see sporting events becoming 3 and 4 hour affairs. And And you mentioned MMA fights. It's still, the fights are generally shorter. There's a lot of knockouts, even in men's 5-minute, rounds. It goes a lot. That's a shorter event than a 12-round title fight. And like I said, it's not all from a health and safety standpoint. Our whole objective in boxing is to throw punches, particularly head punches, right? That's really what happens. The orientation of a MMA bat is completely different. It's wrestling, grappling, kicking, boxing. It's multidiscipline. It's not much necessarily safer all in. There are other injuries that are more prevalent in MMA than they are in boxing. But with respect to head injury, which is the most serious thing, there's no question that boxing is, more risky from a perspective of serious head injury than MMA is.
All right. There you have it, guys. Lou DiBella on 3-minute rounds, maybe 12 rounds. I mean, maybe 12 rounds, who knows? But let's just,
Why? Explain to
Not
me what's
me.
wrong with...
This is what everyone wants.
Who is everyone? And I want to know, explain this to me. Seriously, because I'm really confused. Like, what are you not liking about what you're getting?
I think, they say that exactly what you said. Some of the female fighters, and obviously and when I see it on Twitter, but some of the female fighters that we've interviewed, Jeandra and I have asked about this, and they said, well, if we had that extra minute, maybe the knockout could have come. Maybe. That's a big maybe. But sometimes if you're not doing it in 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, look, then it even makes my point greater. If you're adding the minutes specifically because you think it's going to result in more concussive events, don't do it, particularly since concussive events are more serious, apparently, according to many neurological studies and neurologists, more serious in women, more damaging in women than they even are in men. Not that they're not damaging in both. Obviously, we lose men every year in boxing. But particularly, the argument is occasionally we're going to get more knockouts. Right now, do you see women's boxing all over television?
No.
You don't see it on PBC at all. You see it on DAZN, and largely a lot of those fights are European. You see it on Michaela Mayer's on ESPN. Maybe Aaron will do another women's fight once in a blue moon. You see a proliferation. You see any developmental series anywhere for women? And right now, women's boxing is faster paced, frankly, and more fun than men's. I could put together a cheap show for you with 5 fights, including 2 world title fights, for less than a showbox. And by the way, guarantee you it'll be a night of action. But why isn't it on TV? Well, let's just make the fights longer, and it'll make it even more popular. Oh, the TV executives will pay more money if the product is longer. No, that's not how it works. Honestly,
there's a reason why WBC does not sanction 3-minute rounds, 12 rounds, because I've learned from the WBC about all of this, because the women's brain bleeds faster than men's, and there is a whole scientific thing that I don't know the entire thing, but I've read about it.
I don't necessarily say that it bleeds faster, but if you do Google women and concussion, and you Google women and head injury, or young women and concussion and young women and head injury, there is no question that there are some physiological differences and at least greater risks of severity, at the very least. There are many, many studies that support this. And the WBC cites those studies. And they're not incorrect in doing so. And if people take the time, you don't have to read everything, but just to understand that there's a big debate over this. And if there's a big debate over whether something is safer or not safer, why would you change something to be less safe? Don't we want fighters to be safer? And the women aren't going to knock each other out. They're just going to have longer fights. That's, for the most part, what will happen. A couple of fights, yes, you'll get a knockout extra here or a knockout extra there. But if you think that TV executives aren't willing to put on a half-hour female title fight, are going to be willing to put on more 48-minute or 50-minute female title fights, then you're dumb. It's not a debate. You're dumb. So I don't get it. I don't get it. And by the way, most of the talk now here's where the talk of 3-minute rounds comes from. Women who are frustrated and want to see anyway, and the majority of the women you're talking to aren't making shit money because there are only 5 women in the world making any money, basically 4 or 5. So they're looking for any hope or any straw to pick on that they're going to make more bread. You know what? Keep fighting. Keep building up your brands. Fight under the rules that exist. Your shorter product is actually more attractive to TV. We just have to make the point the same way we had to make the point with the men, and Boxing After Dark to some degree made the point that you don't have to know the fighters yet, but if there are great fights, people will watch. And we got to get more women's boxing on television. And making the product lengthier is not going to help. And certainly, if it's not going to help, why make it less safe?
Period.
So,
right? And I don't want to hear about it. But here's another one, too. Tennis players aren't beating the fuck out of one another. They're not. So is anyone complaining when it's 5 sets for the men and 3 sets for the ladies?
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
I don't want to hear equality bullshit. And the women in fucking tennis are making a lot more money than the women in fucking boxing. So stop.
Even our producer over here is like, yep. Our sound producer, our engineer, yep.
No, but in many ways, like, I love boxing so much, but like, there's so much dumb shit in our sport, and so much stupidity that we waste our time on.
Yeah.
You know, you never can convince. Here's what women have to get over. There's going to be a percentage of people, even if they watch the bouts. And by the way, most of these men who bitch and moan and make fun of the women will watch a women's bout, but they may not buy a pay-per-view, but believe me, they're watching the bouts.
Oh yeah.
You can't give a fuck about what those people say. And you got, and honestly, and believe me when I tell you, you're not going to make a penny more. So you can endanger yourself and fight longer and make less money per hour. Go ahead and do it. You're just being stupid. You know, build your own brand, fight under the rules that exist right now. And by the way, in my mind, part of the reason why I promoted so many women's fights, and I picked up the number I promoted over the years, and I offered product before it was in people's interest to spend money. Like, I was the only guy doing women's boxing in America for how many years? I think it's a better product. I love the 2-minute rounds, and I love the work rate of the women and how much pain that they can endure. I don't mind the fact they're not knocking each other out, because the fights go by really quickly and they're entertaining as hell.
Yeah.
And, you know, and when there's a real mismatch, when there's a mismatch in women's boxing, or there's a real incredible puncher, you can see knockouts, but there aren't that many women in boxing who are punchers. And all respect to Clarissa, she's not a puncher, you know?
Oh.
So where do you think we are now, Lou, as a long proponent, a long promoter of women, a champion, really forging a path for women to fight on? Where do you think we are now? There are more fights on, but it's still.
I don't think. I mean, I think if people get caught up in believing that because, first of all, I don't want to go there, but I'm going to go here. Everyone's talking about Serrano and the other one, how many tickets they sold at the Garden and what the viewers were, whatever. Okay. Now, even if it's true, and I'm not so sure it is because I haven't seen the paychecks or whatever, but let's say I don't know what the fighters were paid, but do you believe that they got paid anything close to what the men would have been paid on the same exact performance? Do you believe that if a man's fight sold out the Garden and did a huge viewership for a streaming service, a pay streaming service, do you believe that that man would get $1 million, for example, if that's what Amanda got? Do you believe for a second that men in the same situation with the same performance would make the same money, or do you believe they'd make more money?
Absolutely more.
Absolutely.
Okay, so then where are we really? And also when you look at the fact that it's really, I can literally name on less than 2 hands the women that are making real money right now. The overwhelming, and there's zero. I mean, for me to develop a female fighter, I put O'Shea Jones pro debut. I don't even have her signed to a multi-fight deal. I mean, I believe that I think she's a great fighter, and I believe I gave her first opportunity, and that if I want to work with her, I believe I can get a deal done. But for example, like O'Shea Jones, I just gave her a pro debut, and there wasn't really an interest, even though she's an Olympic medalist, of any of the networks paying for her pro debut. Mm-hmm. So I put it on a card because I thought a Hall of Fame card needed a quality woman on the card. But that was just money I took out of my pocket and paid O'Shea and her opponent. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't make 1 cent. I mean, it actually cost me money. And I thought it was the right thing to do, but it wasn't the economic thing to do. How do you develop a woman fighter right now? Where's a women's series? Anywhere. Where's any fucking entity on streaming or pay-per-view or network TV or cable paying $1 for a series of women's boxing?
That's facts.
That's facts.
That's facts. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, you're right. And PBC doesn't even put any women's on their women on their cards.
You know, look, I think it's a good thing that Eddie and DAZN are spending money on women, but they're spending them largely on their key territories, which is exactly what a network or a streaming service should do. And there is an interest in women's boxing, particularly in the UK, and they're heavily loaded with UK women. And they're also doing title fights where women's title fights for a streaming service or a network are great value. They cost very little. And if it's a good fight, people will still watch. They got a mega fight out of, they got a mega fight out of Serrano Taylor, where they've done shows that haven't performed anything like that. They have shows that haven't done 1/4 of that performance that they paid 3 times as much money for. So, women's boxing is cost effective. You would think that there would be more champions of women's boxing and more opportunity for women with the media, but there isn't right now.
Okay, so
I'm not trying to paint the dark picture. I'm just saying that.
No. I like what you're saying.
Like there's progress, but we have to like if people get lulled into thinking, oh, women, this is the year of the woman. No, it's not. It's just like we made a step forward. Now, if you don't continue to make step forward, you're still no place. So
I was thinking about, in Cynthia, if you remember, I can't remember which of our female fighter guests was on. It could have been Alicia. I can't remember which one it was. And she discussed how women don't even get the luxury sometimes of having a full camp, that a lot of fights are just made at the last minute to just throw on the card. Yeah, it was Alicia. Do you think that's by design, just to throw them on the last minute? Are there promoters like Eddie Hearn making actual efforts to, Katie's always going to get a full camp because she's
I'm not going to get into who this I'm talking about, but it's going to be illustration of something. I had a real quality woman who's worked her way into a huge fight, and I made a deal with her, and the deal wasn't a fair deal. And I actually said to the woman, here's the problem. I don't think this is a fair deal, but it's a big opportunity if you win. And I don't think it's a fair deal. I have to give options on you. I don't think it's a fair deal on the fight if you win. I think you'll be getting paid way less than any undisputed champion ever. But I can't give you a bigger opportunity because I don't have a platform. See, the point is, people who try to make believe that they're proponents of women and big trailblazers are still basically taking the point of view, well, how much did you make before? Not what's fair. Well, you never made shit before, so why am I going to pay you? Like, women are still easier to push around, and they always will be, because women's boxing is never going to supplant men's boxing. It's never going to achieve equality, which is partially the open market. There are more people that are going to be fans of the men's game than the women's game. But you know what? There's a difference between equality and fairness, and we're still a long way away from fairness. And anyone who thinks we have fairness is not a fan of women's boxing. If you really care about women's boxing, you'll acknowledge that the playing field is still not fair, and we have to make it fairer.
Jotting down what you're saying, and I'm thinking about the conversations that we've had with female fighters, with just other guests of the show, and getting their perspective and how excited they are that opportunities are making themselves available more. So still definitely not equality, but more opportunities are presenting themselves.
They're not only presenting themselves, Jeandra, the women are making them. I mean, Ebony Bridges created a persona, okay, and Ebony Bridges marketed herself, okay. Alicia Baumgartner is not only a great fighter with one of the best punching power of anybody in the game, male or female. She's a good-looking woman, and she knows it. She had a modeling contract, and she is building a brand. And I applaud all of that. But men don't have to do that. There are men that have no personalities, that you don't even know who they are. To walk down the street, no one would know them, making millions of dollars. Yep. So it's not the same thing. And by the way, the Sky Nicholsons and the Sulem Urbina gets it. All the women get it. That they have much more of a need to build a brand, to be attractive, to take advantage of the male fans out there and use whatever they can use to build a following. And men don't have to do that, you know? And by the way, I applaud the women for doing it. I'm the first one to defend the women. Same. The funny part is you got all these horny dudes kissing 8 million comments about how hot you are. and then they'll complain that some woman's like, with a good bod is showing it. Well, fuck yourself. You want her to show it. You scream and yell for her to show. Go fuck yourself. I don't tolerate that shit. But at the same time, why are women doing this? They're doing it because it's not the same opportunity for them.
Yeah. No, they have.
There's a famous line from Players Club that says you got to use what you got to get what you want.
I mean, that's life, man. It's life in boxing, and it's life every place else. Whatever you can use to your advantage to, if you don't think that Ebony Bridges and these other ladies are working as hard as other people, they're working their asses off. And they're working their asses off to build a brand to get some recognition. I know, I don't hate that. And by the way, you're an attractive person. You're a well-spoken person. You can build a persona. That's only going to help you. It's no different. Ryan Garcia gets that on a bigger level. Like he has it easier. He's a man, but that social media presence he has. I mean, if you don't think that, look at the social media presence that Ebony has for a girl that's only got a few fights, and Alicia Baumgartner, getting out there more and interacting with fans, using what she can use to build a brand. That's a positive. Michaela doing the same thing. The ladies get it. And there's nothing wrong with. By the way, you don't have to apologize for being a badass and being attractive. No one makes men apologize for that. And by the way, men spend half their time. Men boxers are mostly undressed most of the fucking time. They got what they have on.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you. We just interviewed Ebony Bridges, and we asked the same thing. I'm like, what's the difference between lingerie and a bikini?
No, there's no difference. But at the same time, by the way, do I get how there's frustration on the part of other women that can't get on TV who may be way, way more talented than Ebony is? Mm-hmm. Okay, but I don't think they should be hating on Ebony. It's really a case of don't hate the player, hate the game.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Because the truth of the matter is there is no platform for women. So, yeah, and it's always been, women have always, sex appeal matters in everything. We know for a fact that two people with the same kind of resume, the attractive person generally gets hired first. Just there's plenty of studies that have shown that. All right. So, but that, the world is not fair. Okay. But, you got to use what you can use to, you got to get by, you got to make a living. And an athlete has a certain period of time. A female athlete, similarly limited in the time of their career. So getting as much attention as they can get, making as much money as they can make, they have the same agenda. And it's much more of a struggle for women. I don't know.
You have Kaylee Reese under you. Obviously, you have conversations like this with her, and she's very real. We had her on the show not too long ago. Do you guys have conversations like this about getting paid and being on a certain platform? Oh, yeah. How does that go? Because how does that work? Because I know that she has health issues. What happens to her belts? Because can she get stripped with all of this happening with her?
Can she get stripped? Yeah, if she's unable to defend, within a certain time, it's possible that she could get stripped. She's not there yet. Mm-hmm. I don't think she has an obligation to tell the whole world exactly why she can't fight right at the second.
Yeah.
When it becomes a point that she's going to hit a deadline, then we're going to have to confront that. You also have to consider that, I have conversations with Kaylee. I don't want to see her take, any health risk, particularly when her career, she could have a career in acting, and, that's going to be there for a long time. And, we have conversations too about her balancing her, she has a major agent now. She's getting meaningful acting gigs in movies. Her health it's one thing, you can do auditions and do an acting job, and it's not an athletic sort of endeavor. So you can be healing as an athlete and still be working. Yeah. So, she's in sort of that situation. Right now, hasn't been able to fight. I think she's getting closer to where it's resolved. I more than that, her medical stuff is her medical stuff. But that's the only reason that she hasn't fought the fight with Chantel yet. And the fight with Chantel will happen as soon as she's able to fight.
We loved having her on. She was so frank and so honest, and she really went into a lot of depth about the type of health issues that she's having. She didn't have to, but she was very candid and very in things people don't consider, like you said at the top of the show, about the different type of injuries and things that women could sustain from these prolonged periods of punishment. Her issues are not exactly tied to it, but they could be. And there's just so much that happens with the female anatomy that I think that people don't appreciate when they're screaming the 3-minute rounds and all the other things that they're screaming.
Well, look, people don't appreciate that women gain weight, and there's menstrual cycles are real things, and timing can really fuck up your body on fight week, and that's there are lots of things women have to deal with that men don't have to deal with in sports. And that's why it shouldn't shock people also that maybe there are some health differences in how women accept blows to the head as opposed to men. I'm not purporting to be a neurologist or a doctor, but I'm just making a point that, we're not physiologically the same.
On a positive note, when you got the call that you were being inducted, where were you? What were you doing when they let you know that you were going in?
When they called me to let me know I was going in, I was to be quite honest, I think I was sort of in a dark place. I mean, it wasn't, Patrick Day had passed away.
Yeah.
And
yes.
We weren't at the pandemic yet, but we were heading into the pandemic. I mean, it was, I found out in December. I was in that, remember, this was a trilogy class. 3 classes got inducted together yesterday. And it was 2020, 2021, and 2022. I was actually voted in for the 2020 class, which means I found out in 2019. So, it sort of was, I also didn't expect to get in on the first ballot. I'll be honest with you. Like, I'm not going to lie to you and say I didn't think I was a Hall of Famer. I think I believed that I was eventually. But I didn't really expect to get in on the first ballot. So when I got the phone call that I had been voted in, I was really sort of shocked. And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't in the best place about boxing also in my own head. So it sort of was like it was a pleasant kind of surprise. It moved me and it gave me a boost maybe where I needed it. The boost didn't last so long because I lost my dog the next week. Yeah, it gave me a lift professionally, at least a lift emotionally kind of thing. And you know what? I needed that lift because we were heading into the pandemic and I was already sort of doubting, my desire, and I think getting into the Hall of Fame, getting that pat on the back probably gave me a lift that was nice. The lift I got, the happiness I felt the last 3 or 4 days, 5 days, hanging out with all these legends and being on the same stages and daises and rooms with them and, getting cheered on by like thousands of people in a parade and they're all boxing fans and everyone knows who you are. It was fucking wild, being inducted with these legends, but I was part of Shane's career and Klitschko's career and Tony's career and Roy's career and Floyd's. These guys, I've known them since they were kids. So, and they're legends of the game, all-time legends of the game. To be on the same stage with them, inducted with them was an honor and a privilege. Bernard and I worked with Bernard and we had some really rough times together, but we had some great times together. And in recent years, we buried the hatchet. More accurately, I buried the hatchet. But we are friendly again, and I had a great time hanging out with Bernard this weekend, reminiscing about old times and talking through some shit. And I had a really good time. I knew who Barbara, Blue Trick was, this trailblazing woman, but I'd never met her. And getting the opportunity to meet her and spend time with her was great. And, it was just a great experience. And look, I've had a great ride with boxing, and I'm at this point, very grateful.
You just mentioned all those names that you've had a part of their career. When you're standing or sitting on that stage before, or even after being inducted, listening to all of their speeches. Were you just in awe because you've had a part in their career and their legacy?
Yeah, but I think I said it. I mean, if you had the opportunity, I don't know if you were able to hear if you heard my speech or not, but like I had Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier on a transistor radio under my pillow when I was a little boy, listening to round by round updates, and I got to know Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier. I attended both their funerals and know their families. My heroes in my college and law school, my 20s, and my high teens, my heroes were the four kings, the only four kings, the real four kings: Hagler, Hearns, Leonard, and Duran, and they became my friends. And I've known every significant fighter of the last 30 years plus.
God.
A lot of them I worked with. And, a lot of the ones I didn't work with are still, friends and people I know well. And from the standpoint of the history of boxing, I've been sort of smack in it for a long period of time now. And it's been an incredible experience.
What have you learned about yourself through all of this? I mean, I know your career, Lou. I mean, people know you're a lawyer. People know you're a promoter. People know you're this man on Twitter that or even on TV, just says like it is, doesn't give a shit. What eventually do you want your legacy to be?
I want my primary legacy. Honestly, I really mean this sincerely, and I think I have achieved it, and I don't think I'm going to change. I'm 60, early 60s. I don't think I'm going to become a worse person. If anything, I think as a work in progress, I've become a better person, and I hope all of us work toward doing that. Or I think we tend to learn a lot as we get older,
yeah.
and you mellow, you learn some lessons, you change a little bit for the better. I want my main legacy to be that I was a good human being, and one thing this last weekend did is I got a little piece of immortality in Canastota, New York, along with the legends of boxing. My picture is going to be there long after I'm dead. And I've achieved a little bit of a legacy in boxing. I've managed also to balance my life a little bit. I run 2 minor league baseball teams, the San Francisco Giants AA team in Richmond, Virginia, the Tampa Bay's AA team in Montgomery, Alabama. I've been in minor league baseball for nearly 20 years, and most boxing fans don't know that part of my life. And a lot of people in baseball do. A lot of people in minor league baseball do. And, the Park Avenue MLB guys know I do both. Most baseball fans don't know that I produced, a lot of documentaries and films. And I've had a pretty broad kind of career. So I think my legacy is going to extend beyond boxing, I hope. But my first love and at least my first vocation has been boxing, and I'm proud of my career, and I'm proud of, I'm really happy I got this recognition this past weekend. But I think my legacy is going to be someone that loved the sport and tried to leave it a little bit better than when he got into it. And if that's my legacy, I'm really proud of that. And actually, I'm on a women's boxing show, so I can say this, and actually, you'll understand what I'm saying. If part of my legacy is that people say DiBella was in front of the curve and tried to help women when other people weren't, then my mom's proud of that, and I'm proud of that, and that's something I'll always be happy about. And I haven't made money overall promoting women. I haven't. I've invested way more than I've made, but I do think I'm a trailblazer of some sort, and I do hope to think that was a little part of why I'm a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Absolutely. Those are straight facts. You've always been at the forefront of women's boxing from what I've known, unless there was someone else before you that I don't know. That's before my time. I was not born at that time. But Lou, wow, this is an incredible honor for you to
I'm going to give a shout out. I'm going to give a shout out to Don King.
Oh, yeah, he did. He did.
By the way, I thought it was poignant, by the way, that King promoted it. Giving Christy Martin that opportunity. I think she, in the modern era of look, there were trailblazers with this young lady, Barbara Lutrick, from the 50s, who was, fighting to get licensed, and then I got to meet this Marion lady, Lady Tiger this weekend, who in the 70s, 60s, 70s went on a hunger strike and became the first woman ever to get licensed in New York, and then but really, Christy Martin and Don giving Christy that platform reopened things for women. So I'm not saying Don was the humanitarian when it came to fighters' careers, but I think it has to be noted that he, Christy made a big point of acknowledging Don and thanking him at the Hall of Fame this weekend. So it's appropriate to just note that he gave that chance to Christy.
Yeah, those legendary fights with Gogarty and Layla Ali and just all the other women that Christy Martin has had in her career. But on that note, Lou, thank you so much for joining us. And whenever you're in Vegas, come to the Brown Table Talk and hang out with us.
It is an open door. Although
Next
I'm at
time
my
in
house.
Vegas, I'll take you up on that.
Yeah, there you go. We'd love that. Oh, we're in our next studio. We're gonna have a kitchen, so maybe you can cook with us some real authentic Italian food.
I make a tremendous Sunday sauce, so if you want to do a cooking show one time, I'm
yes, we're putting that down. Ryan, did you hear that? Put that in our show notes for a future show.
Exactly.
Thank you, Lou. We appreciate it, and congratulations on such a mega honor. Yeah, it's such a well-deserved honor.
Thank you, ladies. It's great to be with you, and I'm definitely going to take you up on that studio visit. So
yes, and also
take care.
Awesome.
Thank you, and make sure you guys all also adopt, not shop. He's a big
adopt,
pet.
not shop.
Yep.
You know what? I actually almost mentioned my rescue dogs in my acceptance. I went so over time on my speech that but I got to tell you something. My rescue dogs have been like they're better than Xanax and any other kind of they're not official therapy dogs, but they sort of are.
They are.
But anyway, ladies, take care.
Thank you, Lou.
Take care, Lou.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Oh, Jeandra, what a sweet. He was the first of the guests that was from the International Boxing Hall of Fame, because we had Antonio Tarver, who was a guest. But for him to be receiving the honor and knowing his story, he's been in the game for a very, very long time, and to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, that's just an incredible story. And knowing that helped him get out of the funk that he was in during those times. But
yeah, that was very moving. That very touched me. So sometimes you just need that a little boost, a little boost. And in this case, that did it for him. And I'm glad for that.
I know. Well, that was another one in the can for us. And this is honestly, I know, I wish you were here, air hug. But Jeandra, I can't wait for you to get back in the studio. You just need to get better. And then hopefully we might be in our new studio by then. We're not exactly sure. But for now, we're here, the beautiful Sticky Paws.
And I don't have COVID, so don't start.
No, she does not. She does not have COVID.
I do not have the Rona. I have food. I got a little food poisoning, so
there you go.
That would have not been pleasant, but enough of that.
Stay hydrated, that's all, and we'll see you here in the studio the next time. And with our fire guests, we are lining up another set of guests that are in the lineup, and you just don't even know, but you don't even understand the people we've already had, the content we're going to be dropping every week. Remember, we drop content now every Tuesday and Thursday because we have so many guests that we need to get all of this content out since it is recorded. But again, remember, make sure you guys like, share, subscribe. All of our YouTube channel, or not our YouTube channels, are on our YouTube channel, our Instagram, our TikTok, our on Facebook. Wow, Jeandra, we're just like pumping out all the socials.
We are moving and grooving for real. And make sure you guys are following all of the things for the Best Women's Boxing Show, period. And follow us individually too. Yeah. We want sponsors too, just like Evan.
And then also let us know in the comments in YouTube or tweet at us who would you like us to interview? And then also, go slip in their DMs, say you need to be on the Best Women's Boxing Show, period.
Exactly. Adam, tag them and Adam. Yeah. And let them know that you want to see them here.
All right, Jay, I'll let you get back to go get some rest, get some sleep, stay hydrated, all right?
I am. I got my water And that's about it.
All right. Well, we're going to sign off. Again, another one in the can. Thank you again for another edition of the Best Women's Boxing Show, period. I am Cynthia Conte.
And I'm Jeandra LeBeauf, live and direct.
Oh, no!